Hello, everyone. My name is Marte Aboagye. I'm the head of community engagement at Springtide Research Institute, and I am here with a friend of mine. She's also an artist. Her name is Linda Badami. She's going to introduce herself in just a moment. But the reason we are in conversation today is because Springtide has just launched a new project. It's a creative offering that's open to anyone ages 13 to 25. It's called My Sacred Space, because we have this brand new report that releases in November called The State of Religion and Young People 2023 Exploring the Sacred. And in that report, we've looked at the ways that young people are finding sacred moments, sacred experiences, what sort of environments and places or contexts were 13 to 25-year-olds saying, hey, this is a significant space in the world where I can reflect. This is a practice I do that gets me in touch with the divine, or this is a relationship that's been really nurturing to the way I identify in the world as a spiritual person, or I really resonate in this nature area, or I'm really able to reflect and find a safe space when I'm listening to music in my room. All sorts of responses in qualitative research interviews, as well as quantitative nationally representative surveys. And we have all this exciting data, but we wanted to also have images to tell the story in a fuller way of, hey, what sort of picture and caption would a young person give to share, this is my sacred space in the world? So this photographic invitation, this project is going to be an online gallery where you can see all different images from youth and young adults. They can even be living anywhere in the world. They don't necessarily have to be living in the US. Our surveys and interviews were from all US-based participants. But for My Sacred Space, for this photo project, they can live anywhere. They just have to be between the ages of 13 and 25 to share a glimpse of their world. We're asking that they don't have any faces in the photo because we don't want anyone to be identified, whether it's the subject or the person who's submitting the photo or their friends or family. We want it to be fairly anonymous because the only ways that the people will be listed is by age. So it won't have their name or where they live. The form collects name and email only so we can be in touch to let you know when it releases. But if the image is accepted into the gallery, we won't know who it is. It'll just say, age 14 with their caption. And we also would eliminate anything identifying in the caption if it did have personal identifying information. But the whole structure of My Sacred Space was really inspired by this really cool project that Linda conceived of and created called My Anonymous Church. We loved this photographic inventory that she has done with all different ages. So, younger than Springtide's ages. I think the youngest I've seen one of your photos being an 11-year-old Linda, all the way up to folks in their 80s, maybe even older than that. So many different generations were represented in this project and collection she did. Springtide, since our focus area is 13 to 25-year-olds, that's who we're looking for, their images in this collection. But we want to see what sort of areas, what sort of objects would people define as sacred. So we really invite you to share this invitation with the young people you serve. If you have a youth group, if you have after school program, if you have a class who is, ready for some sort of interactive project, this could be a great way to do that, to invite everyone to share a picture. It could be something they bring in. It could be an object they bring in. You could help them take the image if they don't have access to a camera. We don't expect everyone to have a smartphone. Or you could do something with phones or with tablets or whatever sort of technology you have access to, and invite them to upload their photo. All of the submissions are being collected at springtideresearch.org/my-sacred-space. Basically, there's a hyphen between the words my and sacred, and between sacred and space. We're going to have the exact URL in the comments wherever you're watching this video, the caption wherever you're watching this video. So you should be able to find it, no problem. But please do it sooner than later, because the deadline to submit is Sunday, October 1st at midnight Pacific Standard Time. So after that, we'll have a team of our Springtide ambassadors who will be reviewing all of the image, and they'll select the ones that go into the online gallery, just because we won't be able to share every image that we receive. But we're really excited already about what's come in so far, and warmly invite you to share this with the young people in your lives and in your networks. So with all that said, I really would love for you to hear what inspired this project, what Linda created when she made really the same parameters for my anonymous church. So Linda, I know you have some photos to even illustrate the inspiration between your term, my anonymous church. Can you screen share and let us see more of what led you to create this? What was the genesis of this idea?
Sure, great. Thank you. It's so nice to be in conversation with you. So I started my anonymous church 7 or 8 years ago, and it started really organically. I have been a person who's explored spirituality and wondered about what's sacred and why. And so this is the origin of this project for me. I was on this ship. A friend had invited me to join her on this cruise with her, and we would get off the ship, and we took a little dinghy off the ship, and we were on this island in Greece, and I entered this church, and I just was interested. I went inside, and it was beautiful, people taking pictures, all these icons and relics, and there's no light except for the natural light through the windows and candles. And I love this image of the Virgin Mary and Jesus, and that somebody has come through and cut out what I'm imagining what they thought was valuable, and just it's just such a striking image, the natural light. And then I lit a candle for my mother. I mean, candidly, I sometimes doubt if prayer works and if lighting a candle means anything. And yet, whenever I find myself in a church or a temple or a synagogue, I tend to do it because if there's a little bit of a faith that, a chance that I can pray for my mother, that she's at peace, I do it. I also have a critique sometimes when I'm asked for money to do it, because I think prayer should be for everybody. But when I'm in a better mood, I just go ahead and put some money in, because I understand that they're up, keeping the church or the space clean and open to the public. Anyway, so I left, it was lovely. I left and I walked up this hill. I walked up to the top of the ridge, and then I found this structure, and I thought it was super cool. And I wondered what it was. And then there was this sign there that said number 19, Anonymous Church. And I was like, wait, this was a church? This was a church. And I went in there, and I went over and I looked out over that rail, and I literally could see the church that I had just been in. And I went, wait, what makes this place any more or less divine than the space that I was just in, with all these relics and all these people? And now I'm here a couple hundred feet away, and I'm by myself. So I just thought about that. I was like, so wait, so what makes this place special and that place not? So this is the ship, and it's hard to see, but that's the little dinghy that I went back on. So anyway, so I spent the rest of the day sort of thinking about that. And then I got back on that boat, And I sat next to these two older women. They were sisters. One lives in England, one lives in Spain. And they said, "Oh, Linda, how was your day?" And I said, "You know, it was great." And I told the story that I just said. And one of the sisters went, "Oh my gosh, I love it. Make an exhibition, make a book, I'll buy it.
Mm,
My place is in India." And her sister said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, don't." And she said, when I die, I want my ashes sprinkled there." And her sister said, "What?" And she said, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's in the will and there's a map." And then she described like this path up to the tree where she wants her ashes sprinkled. And I thought, oh my gosh,
mm,
that's fascinating that she knew exactly where her spot was and that her sister had no idea.
right.
And so I just I just went away thinking like, I think I'm gonna do this. And so when I got back to the States, I started asking friends and family, you know, like, how do I have this conversation? I just started where I was. So I just started asking people and asking them to submit images, or I would take them with them, you know, with my phone or my camera. Um, and you know, I love the name of my project, My Anonymous Church, because of the origin story.
Yeah.
But I also find it limiting because I'm trying to ask anything.
Hmm.
If it's devout, if it's pious, if it's irreverent, if it's
Hmm.
whimsical, if it's
Yeah.
minute, like it doesn't matter to me
Yeah.
as long as it's true.
Mm,
And so I have this sort of expansive question, but then when I say church, it often limits people's notions. So
very
that with Springtide, that you've shifted it to my sacred space, I think is in the right direction. But you know, my point is that I'm interested in anything as long as it's true.
I love what you have done with this project because, as your friend several years back, I remember you returning from Greece and saying, "So I want to start asking people where their anonymous church is. What would they answer this question with?" And the way your artist brain works is just so fun because you see art and not that everyone has to be an artist, but art as this means of connecting stories that come out when there's an image, stories that otherwise your own sister doesn't know. Like the example you just illustrated for the folks who said, love it, do it, make it into a project. It's great you took their vote of confidence seriously and ran with this because now years later, I know you've had conversations all over the place. You've visited different faith communities as well as had tons of different interactions with people who aren't connected to any particular faith community or spiritual home and
Yeah.
ask them, where is your place in the world? Can you show me? Can you tell me? And even the fact that you only list them by age is is the same sort of treatment Springtide wanted to do. I mean, we really have just copied what you created and called it My Sacred Space. So credit goes to Linda. If you're inspired or excited about My Sacred Space, this is the person who really made this project come alive with My Anonymous Church. And Linda, you yourself, I know, you aren't a churchy person necessarily for My Anonymous Church. I know you interact with faith spaces, but I've also heard you call yourself a devout agnostic, which I'd love if you could unpack that term and just tell us more of your spiritual story a bit, because this is what Springtide is always curious about for young people, the ways that they're making meaning in the world and what sort of trusted adults are in their lives to ask questions and process different ideas with. So I think the more we can have different stories of all different paths, all different backgrounds, all different perspectives, the richer it is for everyone, especially the youth and young adults who we're in relationship with.
Yeah, the I think, you know, with so many creative projects, with so many thoughts, it wasn't one thing that led to the next. It's like all these different experiences that came together, wove together to create this project. So first, just how I grew up. I grew up between two households. My parents met in Catholic college, university, and upon my mother's pregnancy with me, she gave up Catholicism, and I was raised when they were still together. I was raised deliberately with nothing. Once they split up, my father remarried, and they had an active Catholic practice, and my mother was an atheist, feminist, academic, and so me in between those two
Yeah.
worlds. My mother's belief was, raise your kids with nothing and they will figure it out on their own.
Hmm.
And my dad and stepmother's household, was leading my brother and I, and mother and me, to Catholicism.
Mhm.
And I actually didn't feel like I fit in either. And
Mm,
so
interesting.
um, when I went and I want to qualify what I say, like there are wonderful Catholics in the world. I don't identify as a Catholic, so I'm just talking about my experience. And sometimes when I
Sure.
when I hear people talk, sometimes it's clarifying because I identify with it, and sometimes it's clarifying because I don't identify with it.
Mhm.
So I mean nobody offense when I just talk about my
Mhm.
experience. So my experience with Catholicism, there's some things that I liked about it, but the notion, there's the profession of faith. You say, God, I'm not worthy to receive you, but only say the word and I shall be healed. And I think, like, what do you mean I'm not worthy? I'm
Mm,
worthy. I
mhm.
am worthy, especially growing up as a gay kid,
Yeah.
in the 70s, that the best that the Catholic churches that I were going to and the other religious institutions around me, the best that they could do for someone like me is they could say, hate the sin but love the sinner.
Mm,
And I was a kid. I wasn't sinning, like, like who I am and my body is like, I wasn't doing anything, but you hated the sin. Oh, no, no, you didn't hate me. You just hated the sin. So I'm not worthy and I'm a sinner. So I
mhm.
didn't really find a lot of love and acceptance there. And so um, that was sort of my foundational stuff. And, as I grew up a teenager and in my 20s, I kept looking around, and so I did explore. I took meditation classes. I did go to lots of places, and I did read a lot, but nothing really fit. And I was sort of okay with that. I mean, it reminded me about when I was in elementary school. We were starting to look at literature and poetry, and so we had a conversation about what is love, and everybody knew what love was, but nobody could articulate it. And somebody eventually said, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I feel it. And so when we get to the notion
Mm,
of, like, what is God,
yeah.
I don't know. And Marta, I think asking me is the wrong question, right? Like,
Mm,
all throughout humanity, cultures have been exploring this question.
yeah.
And even today, we are still having wars and conflicts over the answers. And so to ask me what God is, I don't know.
Mm,
And so I don't think the me exploring what it is and trying to convince myself or others is that attainable.
mm,
Even if it's not attainable, I can still benefit from the exploration,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
If I'm a sailor, I might not understand everything about how wind is created, but I can still use it,
Mhm.
you know? And I don't have to understand everything about oxygen, but I can still breathe. I don't have to understand electricity or be able to generate it, and I can still turn on a light switch and benefit from it. So I have a really practical sense of spirituality.
Mm,
And, in another thread that happened when I was in my 20s or 30s, I don't remember, I was hiking with a friend in Nepal. And so it's
mm,
halfway around the world from where I live. And I was looking at plants and birds that I had never seen before.
yeah.
And I actually felt like, oh my gosh,
Mm,
the sun has, like, who is this secret family? I didn't know you had a relationship with these people. I was amazed at some of the things that I was seeing.
mm,
And so when I think about spirituality, when I think about divinity, when images of nature, when I think about a power greater than myself, right? I was encouraged to, like, go to the ocean and try to hold back the waves. And if you can't, then maybe there is a power greater than yourself. And I really believed in that, like,
Mm,
very concrete notion. And
mm,
so when I look at nature, when I look at trees, when I look at mountains, when I look at the river, and I feel the sun on me, I think everything is perfect. Like, there's such a balance in nature.
mm.
And in that moment, I was like, wait a second, I'm part of this planet. The sun shines on me as well.
Yeah.
And so I really got a very practical sense of, I need to start being my best self. Like, I can look out at the trees and think they're amazing, but to look at myself and think that I'm less than, I
Mm,
think that's right. I think that's an arrogance in reverse, to think about myself so poorly,
mm.
right?
Wow.
And that it is my job to be my best self, right? Because the sun that shines on all those trees, the sun shines on me too. And so
Yes.
my
Mm.
sense of spirituality is a very practical one. And
Ah,
so that's what, and then when I thought about this project, um, I did think visual representations were going to be really helpful, because what I just ramble shared for a couple of minutes about all that, versus just a picture. We can identify things quickly with an image. And then why I didn't do names or locations or gender
mhm,
or any of
mhm.
that is
Yeah.
because I find that a distraction. I don't care.
Mm.
I mean, I do care personally, but like for this project, I
Yeah.
don't care. Like,
Yeah.
is it a helpful message or not? Is it identifiable or not? And I think it's really interesting that sometimes I can hear the prophetic wisdom of a 14-year-old, because
Right.
if I asked a 14-year-old, I might go like, whatever, what's this kid gonna say? But if I see the image and I read the text, I go like, oh, that's true. That's really helpful. A 14-year-old said that,
Right.
right? That I
Right.
allow myself the wisdom of the message of the messenger and don't get distracted by those other constraints.
Mm, beautiful. Oh, thank you for sharing more of your story with us. Whether it's a young person watching this video, whether it's another trusted adult, we know that, yeah, we're richer. Our lives are richer when people can have these sort of exchanges about the ways that they make meaning in the world. So I really appreciate that. Can we see some images? Like,
Sure, let's do
would
that.
you share some that you've pulled?
Great. I've got two sets. Here's the first set. This was one of the first images that I looked at. Hang on, let me get it on my screen. There it is. I was just sort of discovering the language and how to talk about this. So this is a fellow that I've known since he was 30 days old. So I
Mm.
explained this project and he said, oh, sure. I know what you mean. Come on in my bedroom. And so we ran in his bedroom. I was like, I bumbled and I grabbed my phone, and he said, I built a studio in my bedroom. I turn on the red lights and the green lights and make music, age 20.
Beautiful.
And this one, the toilet. I always get on my knees before shows, and it's always a shitty bathroom, age 38. And this is a musician, and I just, I sort of love the reverence of the language, but also just the practice of before she goes on stage
Yeah.
praying in a bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. This is a long, but I'll read it. Every spring since 1970, I've welcomed the blooms of the spliced dogwood, which has both pink and white blossoms. It had endured for many years before that. Its presence reminds me of the rebirth of living things every spring and the ability to outlast many storms. It gives me inspiration to keep going, to continue to love life. It reminds me of God speaking to Job. Where were you when I was creating the dogwood tree? Age 81.
Stunning.
This is a Brooklyn Bridge, and it says, I'm not normally around Brooklyn at night, so walking here is always memorable to me, age 16. The act of running feels great, is meditative, relieves stress, and promotes contentment and satisfaction, lets me actively be in and enjoy my body, and gets me harmoniously out into creation. Plus, races bring together a community that is extremely varied yet unified in a shared enthusiasm and a joyous communal event. Me, after running a gorgeous snowy half marathon on my 55th birthday, age 56.
So cool. I like the sense of community in that one too.
Exactly. And people who would otherwise probably not be hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So this phone, and I was like, oh, actually, and this one, I remember getting this one, I thinking like, oh yeah, I call people too. And the text is, a lot of times when I'm not feeling my best, I'll call someone close to me and it'll make me feel better. It just feels really good to hear other people's voices, age
Mm,
12.
mm,
And and I thought about that around sometimes people, tell me to like listen to God or pray to God and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Sometimes I think I know what that means. And other times I'm like, you know what? I don't have a bat phone to higher power. I just don't. But you know what? I've got Marta's number. I've
yeah,
got other friends that I can
yeah.
call and I can hear a message through them. And so I really love this one.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is somebody sanding a piece of wood and it says, I make things. My head is a dust storm, but when I'm making something and really into it, I can focus on that one thing. It's a kind of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
My love for music blossomed and gave me the most beautiful memories, the ones I hold closest to my heart. Music saved me and ended all of my pain. It is
Mm.
my heaven and my eternal love. Age 14.
Oh,
I remember getting this one and I remember, being struck with it and about identifying about like how I love music too. And it's a place I go. And and then when the person said music saved me and ended all of my pain, I thought, oh my gosh,
yeah,
how much pain a 14-year-old has that much pain that music saved them. And I just was so grateful for that they found this practice. Yeah, this one actually really broke my heart and filled my heart at the same time.
yeah.
This one, kissing the earth with every step. So as you mentioned, I have gone to some different communities and presented this project and then worked with that community to generate new images. And this person doesn't have a cell phone, doesn't have a camera, and asked me to go outside, and they completely directed this image,
Mm.
and um, and then gave me the text. So it was a very sweet exchange. And this one sort of sucker punched me around like it was this beautiful picture. I mean, how can you not look at this and go like yes? But then the text changed the image for me, so I'll just read it. This is a picture of a golf course in Florida around sunset in February 2019. Some people think a golf course is totally bourgeois and a waste of green space, and Trump has done his best to make it again a hated sport.
Mm.
But the golf course is in one place that I have to concentrate but also let go. I have to trust my body to remember intricate movements that will change the direction for hundreds of yards. Because I often walk the course, I feel alive there in a way I do not in any other place in my life. I feel the heat, the air, the wind, and if I walk, I feel tired, which is a good feeling. Often as a woman, I am literally and figuratively alone on a vast field. I guess that doesn't really explain why it's sacred to me. In my regular life, I am a responsible lawyer and I'm a responsible mother and daughter and sister. I help my church and I do my best by my community. So this is the one place where I'm truly alone, where I am asked only to try my best and there will be forgiveness. Age 56.
Ah, you're right. The caption totally isn't what you expect.
Yeah. I love it. And Daisy, age 16. Love it.
Mhm.
Simple as can be.
I
Daisy.
think a lot of animals could be the answer to what is your my or what's your anonymous church or what is your sacred space.
Sure. This was another surprising one. So the image of the Virgin Mary, and the text says, I'm a thoroughly unrepentant atheist. I found this folk art Madonna in a tiny crumbling abandoned church off a dirt path way atop a mountain in Umbria. I shook off my growing irritation at all the other Baroque and Renaissance Madonnas I had seen in the huge gilded cathedrals in Rome and Assisi. So passive, so, oh, you want me to bear the Son of God? Okay. This lady looks passive too, but her gaze is on the crumbling frescoes and the falling altar of this tiny church where farmers and shepherdesses used to trek up the path on Sundays and bring her their prayers and joys and sorrows. I imagine behind those soulful eyes, she's thinking, I'm still here. I miss you. I still love you.
Mm.
I do not believe in God, much less a God that would inflict such painful motherhood on this woman. But I believe in her and the peasant artist who painted her. So she's my now and forever screensaver. So whenever I open my laptop, she is there, blessing me, loving me.
Oh man.
She is. Yeah, love that one. This image is in, oh, I mispronounced this, Bangalore. How do you say that?
Bangalore.
Bangalore, thank you. This image in Bangalore, India, of a tree that is very old and has grown around this Hindu shrine. Church, so to speak, is everywhere, in everyone, if we just look. And I
That's
just love this.
rad.
Its image is incredible. The
Yeah,
tree literally grows through the shrine.
that's really remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, age 50. Stories and storytelling has always been comforting to me, whether it be through music, books, or TV. Being able to place myself in a different life provides me with a sense of peace, because when you're casting spells with Harry Potter,
Mm.
sword fighting with Percy Jackson, singing with Steven Universe, and observing the world with Walt Whitman, life doesn't seem as bad. Age 13.
Oh,
And I love that this 13-year-old is, reading Walt Whitman and
that's what I was
Percy
thinking.
Jackson. Yeah, it's awesome.
They're for sure reader.
Writing helps me memorialize moments of joy and decompress from burdens weighing me down. When I run, my spirit is invigorated and my brain refreshed as I propel myself forward one step at a time. When I reread things I've written weeks, months, or years later, I realize how far my steps have carried me. Age 48. My cats show me love, and whenever I'm feeling upset, they sense that and come over and cheer me up. Age
Mm.
14. So that's the first set
Those
here.
were lovely. I mean, already in this first set, I love just the diversity of
Yeah,
images. There's such a breadth of type of responses you got, and yet you start to see some small patterns. Like there's a cat and a dog. There's pets, there's other living beings, there's different things that are in outdoor environments.
yeah,
Sometimes there's more posed stage photos, like a stack of books or the shoes on the journal with the pen. And I love it all. I love it all. Like I hope these are inspiring people's own reflections. And it could be something that you stage and are really thoughtful about the lighting. Or it could just be, I've had this image sitting on my phone for years. And yeah, it's really memorable for me. So can we see a few more? It looks like you're
yeah.
already
I'd love
doing
to.
screen
I'd
share.
love to. But you're pointing out what I've noticed too, that I'm never anything but amazed at the diversity of responses. And still, I do notice some patterns around, animals, around nature, around activity,
Okay.
right? And,
Yeah.
and some of the things that aren't included in this, I sidebar. I've worked with some church communities, and one of the things that I've noticed is that I don't get many pictures of churches, right?
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
I haven't to date, and I'll as I continue. I've only talked to hundreds and hundreds of people, but maybe after I talk to thousands and thousands, that will be added to it. But when the name sort of lands my mind in a place, and the point of the exercise of the piece is to expand that. But even so, I'm actually surprised that it hasn't been prayerful a pew. It hasn't been that. Anyway, so let's look at some more images.
Hmm.
Um, Theater. The words "wash my cells clean." Age 53. This is what I love. Nature connects me to my higher power. Age 60.
Hmm.
This is somebody opening a ceramic kiln, and it says, "The moment we open the kiln door." Age 60.
Yeah. Cool.
Animal rescue, protecting the animals. Age
Mhm.
67. It's drugs. It's total escapism.
Oh.
Now, I want to pause on this one too, because, as I said, how do you start a project? Well, you start where you are, right? So I asked friends and family. So I actually knew the person who sent this image, and I gasped when I opened this email because I knew that they used some drugs, but I didn't know that
Mm,
they had this kind of relationship with drugs.
mm.
And so it really made me gasp, and yeah, yeah, and I had a pretty strong reaction to it, but I did ask, as long as it's true.
As long as it's true.
Yeah. This is a grid, and in case people can't see this, it's a scuba, and then there's a shark and an eel, and it says the perfect balance when scuba diving. This is me by Coral Reef, age 74. And this is also one of those interesting things around age,
I
because
agree.
candidly, I was like, 74, you're a scuba
Yeah,
diver?
I've scuba
This
a
is
couple of
where
times in my life and felt like really like I was living on the edge to do it. And I don't picture myself necessarily partaking in it that late into my life. So that's really
Yeah. Yeah. So I really, even though it's age, like I thought I was subtracting all my biases, but I still have, on occasion hit them. And I love that this project has made me.
I mean, it's a generational conversation too, in the
Yes.
fact that you only offer ages. And that's definitely Springtide's interest, except that we zero in on, usually one, maybe two, maybe three generations at a time. Like Gen Alpha is just coming into our research. Gen Z, millennials are sort of just leaving the window of 13 to 25, but that is so rad that you have such a wide spectrum of ages where you can be
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised in any direction for
Yeah.
what someone old or young has submitted.
Yeah. And I am trying to amplify the common voices. I am trying to amplify and connect intergenerationally. Like
Mhm.
that is actually something that this project is intended to do. And also, we do live obviously in the age of such social media, but because I'm not asking names, they're not going to be linking to any of their social media pages. There is a degree of anonymity. There's no benefit, that nobody's getting anything from this
Sure.
except that they're amplifying their truth, and they're
Mhm.
offering their practice for others to identify with, or honestly to push against. Like I,
Mm.
I that the picture of the pills and the drugs, like that is so not for me. And honestly, it was clarifying for me. I was just like, oh, actually, you know what? I don't want to get high.
Mm.
If something is going on, I want to be present. For me, again, I'm not trying to advocate for anything. I want to be fully present to be able to be of assistance. So that wasn't for me. Anyway, let's keep going. The next one, creativity, especially crocheting. The repetitive motion and the feel of fiber soothes my anxious mind and gives me something to focus on so I can hear other people and my higher power better. Age 41. And it's one of those things but that I do identify with it, right? I do identify with creating something and drowning out all the voices in my head. Love this one. The sycamore tree,
Mm.
representing the Prince of Peace. I'm one of his soldiers. No matter how bad life gets, he's always with me. Age 44. And I took this picture, and he you can see in his sweatshirt the two tassels he's or ties he's pulled apart because he really wanted the picture to show that he was wearing a peace medal.
Mm.
Water, the river, actually. My yoga mat. Oh, and the last one was, I think, age 63. The yoga mat, age 43.
Oh,
So
I love these. I love them so much. I mean,
yeah,
clearly because Springtide wanted to replicate this, but this collection, just this glimpse you've given us. I know some are on your website, but not all of them you've shared in this conversation. So your website is myanonymouschurch.com.
oh,
I wanted to make sure I had the dot part right. myanonymouschurch.com. If you want to see other images or other captions or return to some that Linda shared in this conversation, you'll notice that some of hers do have human subjects because she had different parameters, different permissions.
exactly. Yeah,
Springtides again, it could be like the back of heads, but but we don't want any human faces shown in the images. So that's one parameter to keep in mind. All the other sort of rules you can find on our submission page. Again, that is springtideresearch.org/my-sacred-space. You can find the link in the comments and in the caption of this video. Please share. Please consider how you might, facilitate your own conversation in your own community. And maybe that would be an intergenerational one in the ways that Linda's project with My Anonymous Church provided that intergenerational exchange. This is the type of thing you could sit around with all different ages and have an open conversation about where is your place in the world.
Yeah, and to expand on what you're saying, Marta, I often, with any project, with any music, with any art, it's not for everybody. So some conversations I've had with people and they've been like, whatever, interested in it, and some people get it and are interested right away. And with many of these people that I've talked to, it's not one thing,
Yeah.
people will have multiple responses and, around age and privacy. I worked with one youth group and one of the young people submitted 4 images. I didn't include any of them for some of the privacy reasons that you've talked about. I've made some of those choices as well. But I love that this kid gave me 4 images and that there was such certainty even at that young age. I think he was 11. It's incredible. And without this project, I would not have known that 11-year-old was considering these things and had 4 answers for me.
I'm so glad you said that, because that is what I feel like Springtide is dispelling a lot of the time, because the public narrative and the common assumption is often that young people today, they don't care about religion or they're not invested in spirituality. They just want to do technology, or they're too on their phones, or whatever that, negative view is of emerging generations. This is like, ask and then learn and be surprised about the ways that young people are making meaning in the world, what sort of interests they have, or where there is a sacred space or a spiritual connection for them, or a practice maybe that you didn't even know that they were engaging. So yeah, just to be more curious about one another instead of putting, assumptions and labels, that I think our research is always sort of disrupting those common narratives, common misconceptions. And I think your project does that in really refreshing and illuminating ways as well. So anything else you want to offer? Yeah.
Yeah, it's meant to be a very practical conversation, a very practical art display of art and text, because the world is hard. And some people say it's as hard as it's ever been. I don't know about that. I think the world has always been hard, and there's always been difficulties, but there's always been strategies. There's always been remedies and practical solutions and practices that we can implement. I had to figure them out as a young person. I had to figure them out as a teenager. I had to figure them out. And some of the things that I did as a teenager, oh my gosh, I don't do them anymore. Some of them I still do. And so it's also interesting over time if I had asked my 10-year-old self this question, I actually would have had some answers. And they were different when I was 16 and they were different when I was 25. And what are they now? So it's actually a very practical question that I think is going to change over time.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I really hope that the population that you're working with have these conversations. And if it's not for everybody, it's not for everybody. Like sometimes it just isn't. Sure. But I have never not been surprised at some of the answers that I've gotten. So I hope it's a really successful project for your community.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your time today, your story. Thank you for letting us be inspired to say, this is a phenomenal project. We want to ask the same question and offer the same invitation for anyone connected to Springtide. So share the invitation far and wide. You can find all the information right below this video, and you'll be able to see the gallery in not too long. The deadline to submit is Sunday, October 1st, and soon after that, our gallery will be live online with a variety of the images that young people have shared about their sacred space in the world. Thanks again, Linda. Thank you to anyone who watched this video and is sharing this project. We're so grateful. Take care.